I really saw how certain people look at Shedeur, and specifically the older generation, right? The older legends have a lot of respect for Shedeur.
I saw one where Shedeur Sanders was closing his eyes and throwing passes.
Picture this. One of the most decorated coaches in college football history walks into a private gym this offseason, watches a Cleveland Browns quarterback fire passes with his eyes completely shut and doesn't say a word. Just watches, just nods. And the footage that set the football world on fire. Shedeur's own people didn't even post it. Someone else did, a bystander. And by the time it spread, everyone had an opinion, but almost nobody was asking the right question. Because the gym session with Jim Tressel isn't the headline here. It's just the most recent chapter in a story that's been building quietly for months. A story about men who have climbed to the very top of this sport, men who have absolutely nothing to prove and nothing to gain, who keep gravitating toward the same young quarterback and saying the same things about him. Curt Warner, Bernie Kosar, Peyton Manning, Hanford Dixon, now Jim Tressel. 5 of the most respected names this game has ever produced, all arriving at the same conclusion, separately, independently, without coordination. So ask yourself, when does a pattern like that stop being a coincidence and start being evidence? Stay right here, because this story goes much deeper than one workout clip. To really feel the gravity of what happened in that gym, you first need to understand who Jim Tressel actually is, not just the name, but the full weight of everything that name carries with it.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
And it was like dinner time, 4th workout of the day. I'm like, 4 workouts? Man, Josh Allen, I don't see any evidence that he even has had 1 workout. And our quarterback has 4. And then, is there even more after that? Is there 5 and 6? Like, these guys, they are on the grind. They are on the hustle. And I'm telling you, I just think this is setting up. Todd Monken has clearly planted that seed that you guys, gentlemen, are in a competition. Get out there, close your eyes, throw some passes, workout, hustle, workout, grind, workout, lunch, workout, dinner, workout.
None of this is real.
Go to the D3 schools, work out some more. Have Jim Tressel come and hang out.
Most people's mental image of Tressel starts at Ohio State. That's a mistake. His story began long before Columbus. Before he ever coached a snap in a Power 5 stadium, Tressel was at Youngstown State doing something that most coaches spend their entire careers chasing and never catching. He won 4 Division IAA national championships there. 4. Back to back to back and then 1 more. That's not a hot streak. That's a dynasty built from scratch at a level where resources are limited and margins for error are basically non-existent. Then Ohio State called. And from the moment he arrived in 2001 through his final season in 2010, Tressel put together one of the most impressive sustained runs in modern college football history. 94 wins against 22 losses. Consistent dominance over Michigan in a rivalry where dominance is never guaranteed. 3 separate appearances in BCS national championship games. And in 2002, a perfect season, not a single blemish, capped with a national title that nobody who watched it has forgotten. That is the man who chose to spend part of his summer standing in a gym across from Shedeur Sanders. Not a personal trainer building his clientele. Not a former player cashing in on association. A man whose trophy case represents the kind of achievement most coaches only dream about from the outside looking in. And when someone with that resume makes a choice about where to spend their time, that choice is never casual.
And it was like dinner time, 4th workout of the day. I'm like, 4 workouts? Man, Josh Allen, I don't see any evidence that he even has had 1 workout. And our quarterback has 4. And then, is there even more after that? Is there 5 and 6? Like, these guys, they are on the grind. They are on the hustle. And I'm telling you, I just think this is setting up. Todd Monken has clearly planted that seed that you guys, gentlemen, are in a competition. Get out there, close your eyes, throw some passes, work out, hustle, work.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Shout out to Boog, because obviously Shedeur is putting in some work, and obviously when you're putting in work with somebody this legendary in the world of football and Jim Tressel, right? You're talking about national champion, and just so we all know, because I printed it out, I have it right here for you. We're talking about national champion. We're talking about a Division I AA 4-time national championship at Youngstown State. We're talking about the president of Youngstown State was at Ohio State from 01 to 2010, when 94 and 22 overall against Rival Michigan, reaching 3 BCS national championship games, and then the 2002 national championship game, which was an undefeated season. Look, this, when I saw this, and by the way, obviously I know Shedeur putting in work.
Here's the detail that keeps getting glossed over in the coverage of this story. Tressel's involvement wasn't a one-time visit. The reports circulating around this situation point to something more consistent than a single session, multiple appearances, multiple workouts, a recurring presence that other people's cameras keep catching at different points throughout the summer. And that consistency is the part that matters most. Because a man with 4 national championships and a 94-win coaching record doesn't keep returning to a gym, unless what he's seeing in that gym is genuinely worth his continued investment. Think about what that actually requires. Tressel has been around elite talent his entire professional life. He's coached players who went on to successful NFL careers. He knows, better than almost anyone, the difference between a quarterback who has real tools and one who has simply learned to look the part in low-stakes environments. His radar for that distinction has been calibrated over decades of real competition at real stakes. And whatever that radar is picking up when he watches Shedeur work keeps bringing him back through the door. One more thing worth noting. The footage of Tressel in that gym wasn't released by Shedeur's team. No coordinated drop, no timed post for maximum engagement. It surfaced because someone else caught it and shared it. That tells you something important about the nature of what's actually happening. The work exists whether or not the camera is pointed at it. And when a 4-time national champion keeps showing up to be part of that work without any announcement attached, that's a form of credibility that no highlight package can replicate. But what specifically happened during that session that made the entire football world stop scrolling? The answer to that question reveals even more than the name on the guest list.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
The moment that broke through the noise wasn't a deep ball sailing 60 yards down the sideline. It wasn't an improvised scramble or a behind-the-back release engineered for maximum shareability. It was something quieter and somehow more striking than any of those things. Shedeur Sanders standing in a gym, closing his eyes completely and delivering the ball anyway. Smooth, unhesitating. Like the destination of that throw had already been decided somewhere deep in his nervous system, long before his eyes ever needed to confirm it. The internet's first instinct was to frame it as content. Reactions flooded in immediately, admiration from some corners, skepticism from others, debate about whether it was genuinely impressive or carefully staged for the algorithm. But the conversation that followed almost entirely missed what made that moment actually significant. It wasn't the drill itself. It was when the drill happened. Based on what was being reported and what analysts were reacting to in real time, that eyes-closed rep didn't happen at the start of a fresh training session. It happened somewhere deep inside what was reportedly Shedeur's 4th, possibly 5th workout of that single day. By dinner time, the sun was going down and this man was still going. That detail hit analysts mid-conversation and stopped them cold. One of them made the comparison out loud. He hadn't seen a single verified piece of off-season training footage from Josh Allen. Not one clip, not one confirmed session. And here was Shedeur, 4 documented workouts into his Tuesday before most people had finished eating dinner. The follow-up question came out half joking and completely serious at the same time. Does session 5 happen after this? Does 6? Nobody confirmed it. Nobody denied it either. and somehow that uncertainty made the whole thing land even harder. There's a version of this conversation that gets oversimplified quickly. Everyone in the NFL works in the off-season. That's not a revelation. That's a baseline expectation for anyone drawing a paycheck in this league. The relevant questions aren't whether the work is happening. They're about the nature of it, the volume of it, and who's present while it unfolds. When a four-time national champion is the one running your fourth session of the day, and your own team isn't the one broadcasting it, the story you're looking at is categorically different from the standard quarterback puts in off-season reps narrative. The eyes-closed drill also deserves a more honest technical examination than it's been getting. Removing vision from a throwing repetition strips away the safety net that most quarterbacks unconsciously rely on. What remains is pure accumulated muscle memory, the physical result of thousands upon thousands of repetitions, where the body has internalized the mechanics so deeply that conscious thought becomes unnecessary. You don't develop that kind of automation through moderate preparation. You develop it through the kind of sustained, high-volume commitment that makes a fourth workout feel like a natural part of the daily schedule, rather than an extraordinary effort. The analysts laughing about the Josh Allen comparison weren't really making a joke. They were describing something real from a sideways angle, and that reality points directly into the middle of a quarterback competition that's more layered and more genuinely uncertain than the surface-level coverage has been suggesting. Let's cut straight through the cleaner version of this story that's been making the rounds and talk about what's actually happening inside the Cleveland Browns quarterback room. Because the reality is more complicated and more interesting than the narrative that's been building around Shedeur online. Nobody is handing him anything. Todd Monken hasn't suggested it, hasn't implied it, and has been consistent enough in his messaging that the point shouldn't require much elaboration. The starting quarterback job in Cleveland is open and it is being competed for. Deshaun Watson is in that room. Dillon Gabriel is in that room. Shedeur Sanders is in that room. All three of them are chasing the same position, and the man with the authority to assign it is going to make his decision based on what he observes when actual football is being played, not based on what showed up on someone's Instagram story in July. Practice repetitions, film evaluation, pre-snap decision-making at full speed, how a quarterback responds when a drive stalls and the huddle needs someone to steady the energy, not during a highlight moment, but during the grinding middle section of a long practice when fatigue is real and everything feels harder. Those are the conditions under which Monken is going to form his read, not in a gym, not through a retired coach's endorsement. On the practice field, under real competitive pressure, in front of the teammates who will ultimately have to trust whoever ends up under center. So if none of the off-season footage actually decides anything, why does it matter at all? Because behavior in the absence of obligation reveals character in a way that mandatory participation never can. When there's no practice scheduled, no coach grading your footwork, no game film being reviewed tomorrow morning, what a player chooses to do with that time tells you who he actually is underneath the structure. It tells you whether the work ethic is a performance that appears when eyes are on it or a genuine trait that persists when nobody's watching. And that distinction ends up being enormously predictive of what a player looks like when the competitive pressure becomes real and sustained. Now, the honest picture of this quarterback room requires acknowledging what Watson and Gabriel actually bring. Watson carries NFL starting experience and an organizational financial commitment that creates its own gravitational pull on how this situation unfolds. Gabriel closed his college career with production numbers that front offices take seriously. This is a real competition between real options, and anyone packaging it as a formality standing between Shedeur and an inevitable coronation is working from a conclusion rather than from evidence. There's also been speculation, worth noting clearly as speculation, and nothing beyond that, that organizational dynamics within the Browns' front office may introduce variables into this competition that don't map cleanly onto what happens purely on the practice field. No confirmed sourcing behind that, no names attached, just the kind of persistent background chatter that tends to accompany situations with more internal complexity than the public version of events captures. Worth monitoring rather than concluding anything from. What none of that changes is the picture on Shedeur's side of the ledger. The daily habits, the consistent presence, and the growing list of football minds who keep arriving at the same read about him from completely different starting points. The evaluation came before the draft, before Cleveland, before Shedeur ever stood in a huddle wearing a Browns uniform and called a play against an NFL defense. Curt Warner had already formed his opinion, put it on record, and stated it with the kind of specificity that separates a genuine assessment from a feel-good quote designed to generate attention. Warner's credibility on this subject is not manufactured. He played the quarterback position at the highest level the sport offers, won a Super Bowl, and built a Hall of Fame career through a path that had no business producing the results it produced. He understands the position from the inside, the mechanics, the decision-making, the mental processing that happens in the fraction of a second between reading a defense and releasing the football, in a way that the overwhelming majority of analysts commenting on quarterbacks simply cannot access. When he evaluates a passer, the foundation underneath that evaluation is experiential in a way that purely observational analysis isn't. And his evaluation of Shedeur was precise. He named him the most accurate quarterback in the 2025 draft class, not among the most accurate, not worth watching, not showing promise. The most accurate, the top of the group on a specific, measurable football skill. His explanation drilled into the technical detail. When Shedeur gets his feet set, when he finds his comfort zone in the pocket, and when he pulls the trigger, the ball lands where he intended it to land. Consistently. That's not a compliment about attitude or potential. That's a targeted, technical read on a specific skill from someone who spent his career at the absolute peak of that same skill. Warner stayed engaged after the draft closed too. When Shedeur made his NFL debut against the Baltimore Ravens, Warner returned with an actual film study. Not a narrative constructed around a storyline someone wanted to tell. Real film. He walked through the throws that worked and explained why they worked. He walked through the difficult moments and gave them honest context. And the overall approach carried an underlying seriousness. The kind you extend to a quarterback you're evaluating as a legitimate player navigating a genuine learning process, not as a story to be either celebrated or dismissed based on whatever fits the moment. That framing matters, because it signals that Warner's evaluation of Shedeur isn't attached to a narrative he's invested in sustaining. It's attached to what the film actually shows him on a given day. And through the draft process, through the debut, and into the off-season, what the film has shown him hasn't moved his assessment in a negative direction. In a media environment where takes shift based on single plays in a single quarter, that kind of consistency from a credible evaluator carries real informational weight. Warner's perspective arrives from tape study and broadcast observation, credible, technical, and grounded in real expertise. But there's a category of evaluation that hits with even more force. The kind that comes from direct, daily, in-person observation of what a player actually does when the cameras aren't framing the moment. That version of the story came from someone who knows exactly what it costs to play quarterback in Cleveland, and what he said was about as direct as it gets. Start with the baseline fact that makes everything Kosar said carry extra weight. There was no pre-existing relationship between him and Shedeur Sanders before this year. No shared history, no prior camp connection, no loyalty built over time that would create a natural pull toward saying something supportive. Kosar didn't arrive at this situation with any reason to be invested in how Shedeur's career unfolds. Kosar occupies a specific and irreplaceable place in Cleveland Browns history. He's the last quarterback this franchise's fan base can point to from the modern era and say with genuine conviction, "That was our guy, that was real, that gave us something worth remembering." He played that position in that city during a period when the Browns still had an identity worth protecting, and the experience left him with an understanding of what the job actually demands, not in the abstract, but in the specific, pressure-filled, deeply scrutinized reality of being the starting quarterback in Cleveland, that very few people still connected to the organization can match. He had no obligation to Shedeur, no reason to put his credibility on the line for a rookie quarterback still trying to earn a starting job in an open competition. And yet he went public anyway. What happened in between was simple and revealing. Shedeur arrived. He got to work. And Kosar, who has been around enough quarterbacks at enough different levels to immediately distinguish genuine commitment from its imitation, paid attention to what he saw. Kosar's public statement wasn't vague encouragement. He said Shedeur has the right stuff. He said he believes in him as a QB1, not as a developmental project, not as a guy worth watching, but as the real answer at the position. And when he broke down the reasoning behind that conclusion, the first thing he reached for wasn't a highlight throw or an impressive training camp rep. It was routine, the consistency of showing up early and staying late. Individual drills completed on personal time that no coach is requiring and no grade is being assigned for. The habit underneath the talent, that's what moved Kosar's needle. There's a secondary element to Kosar's take that tends to get buried in the coverage. Beyond the football observations, he mentioned Shedeur's presence around the facility in a broader sense. The way he engages with people, signs autographs after sessions, treats the environment around him like it matters rather than like a backdrop for his own story. And when Shedeur responded to that on camera, the answer he gave didn't sound rehearsed. He said there's nothing to fake at this point in his life. No calculated strategy behind the behavior, just how he actually moves through the world. That answer has a history. Shedeur has been giving some version of it since his days at Jackson State, through Colorado, and now into the NFL. The wording shifts slightly depending on the context, but the core of it hasn't changed. And answers that stay consistent across years and changing circumstances, without becoming more polished or more strategic, tend to be true in a way that rehearsed answers aren't. When the last great Browns quarterback looks at a young player and says he's got what it takes, in that city, knowing what that city asks of its quarterbacks, people who understand what he's actually saying tend to listen carefully. Step back from each individual moment and look at the complete picture laid out in sequence. Because when you see all of it together, what you're actually looking at becomes very difficult to argue away with a single counterpoint. Curt Warner, Super Bowl champion, Hall of Famer, a man whose understanding of the quarterback position comes from having played it at an elite level through circumstances that had no business producing elite results. He studied Shedeur against an entire draft class, evaluated what he saw through a technical lens sharpened by his own playing career, and landed on most accurate passer in the group. No prior relationship with Shedeur, no personal angle driving the conclusion. Just film and an honest read from someone qualified to give one. Bernie Kosar, the standard against which Browns quarterbacks have been measured for decades in Cleveland. A man who played the position in that building under that pressure and walked away understanding exactly what it demands. He had no connection to Shedeur before this year, observed him working up close on a daily basis, and went public with a genuine endorsement. In-person evaluation. A relationship that formed organically from nothing. Peyton Manning, quite possibly the most analytically sophisticated quarterback who has ever played the game at any level. He put Shedeur through an actual working session on a nationally broadcast ESPN platform. Not a courtesy appearance, not a staged moment for the cameras, a real workout that aired in front of a national audience. Manning's time has always been precisely allocated. He participates in things that are worth his participation. That's been true throughout his entire public life. Hanford Dixon, A man who played in Cleveland, who carries real affection for that franchise, and who has watched one quarterback after another cycle through that building over the years without any of them providing a real answer. He didn't offer a carefully hedged take. He said it directly, give Shedeur the genuine opportunity to start. No conditions attached, no pending further evaluation. A straight public position. Jim Tressel, 4 national championships, 94 wins at Ohio State, a career defined by building programs from the ground up and developing players who go on to accomplish real things at the next level. He is spending his summer running a Browns quarterback through drill work on what may have been that quarterback's 4th session of the day. 5 men, 5 completely independent paths to the same destination. No coordination, no shared conversation, no overlapping motivation. Now, the skeptical read on this exists and deserves honest acknowledgement. Deion Sanders operates one of the more sophisticated personal branding ecosystems in professional sports, and Shedeur's public image has been carefully shaped across several years and several platforms. Reasonable people can ask whether some of what reads as organic carries intentional engineering underneath it. But that argument meets a wall when you examine who specifically is offering the endorsements. Tressel gains nothing from association. Kosar's standing doesn't improve from backing a rookie. Warner's Hall of Fame credentials aren't enhanced by attaching his name to a quarterback still proving himself. These men have spent careers developing the radar to instantly recognize the difference between performed seriousness and genuine commitment. And 5 of the most credible radars in football history are currently pointed in exactly the same direction. This part of the conversation needs to be said directly, without softening it or burying it underneath enthusiasm, because the honest version of this story requires it. No amount of legend endorsement hands Shedeur Sanders the starting quarterback job in Cleveland. Not one name on that list. Not all 5 of them combined into a single collective statement of support. When training camp opens and real football begins, Todd Monken is going to watch Shedeur compete against Deshaun Watson and Dillon Gabriel under actual competitive conditions. He's going to track how quickly Shedeur processes pre-snap information when a defense is disguising its coverage and the play clock is moving. He's going to observe what happens when a practice drive breaks down, and the offense needs someone in the huddle who can reset the group without the energy collapsing, not during a smooth, high-momentum stretch where everything is clicking, but during the grinding, difficult stretches where character reveals itself. Film sessions will show him decision-making at full speed. The teammates in that quarterback room will form their own organic read on who they trust when the situation gets heavy. Those are the inputs that determine the output. A gym session in July and a quote from a Hall of Famer are not on that list. The full and honest picture of the competition in Cleveland also requires giving Watson and Gabriel their appropriate weight. Watson carries NFL starting experience at a level that none of Shedeur's college success can yet replicate, along with a contractual situation that creates organizational considerations operating parallel to the purely football-based evaluation. Gabriel finished his college career with efficiency numbers that drew genuine front office attention, not courtesy attention, real attention. Both of them are legitimate competitors in a room where the job is genuinely open. There's also been background chatter, stated here clearly as unverified speculation, and nothing beyond that, suggesting that internal Browns organizational dynamics may introduce factors into this quarterback decision that don't track neatly with what happens strictly on the practice field. Nothing confirmed, nothing sourced with credible attribution, just the persistent kind of undercurrent that tends to form around NFL situations, carrying more internal complexity than the official public narrative reflects. File it as something worth watching rather than something worth concluding anything definitive from. None of that background noise changes what exists on Shedeur's side of this equation, the daily habits that keep surfacing through other people's cameras. The consistency that made Bernie Kosar's opinion shift before a single public word was said about it. The sustained work ethic that keeps earning the time and attention of men who have had no shortage of other options for how to spend their summers. Legends showing up doesn't guarantee anything about what happens when the whistle blows and real competition begins. What it does is establish something that's genuinely harder to manufacture than a polished highlight package. A reputation that forms independently, through direct observation, among people with the experience to know immediately what they're actually looking at. Training camp will answer the questions everyone is actually waiting on. But the off-season already revealed something real about the person who will be walking into that competition every single morning. Pull all of it back to where this started. A decorated coach, a private gym, eyes completely shut, reportedly the fourth workout of the day. That single clip opened a window into something that had been developing quietly long before anyone caught it on camera. A pattern that doesn't get produced by branding strategy or careful image management. A pattern built from 5 separate men, arriving through 5 separate paths, at 5 separate moments, and landing in exactly the same place every single time. Curt Warner saw it in the tape. Bernie Kosar saw it on the practice field. Peyton Manning saw it up close during a working session. Hanford Dixon saw it clearly enough to say it publicly. And Jim Tressel saw it in a gym at dinner time when the workday should have been finished hours ago. None of it replaces what has to happen when training camp opens and Todd Monken starts making decisions based on real football. The competition is genuine. The stakes are real. Nothing is settled yet. But here's what you can take away from all of this. Men who have reached the absolute top of this sport don't keep showing up for someone casually. So tell us, does Shedeur start week 1 in Cleveland? Drop it in the comments right now. Gridiron Ground, see you in the next one.
And it was like dinner time, 4th workout of the day. I'm like, 4 workouts? Man, Josh Allen, I don't see any evidence that he even has had 1 workout. And our quarterback has 4. And then, is there even more after that? Is there 5 and 6? Like, these guys, they are on the grind. They are on the hustle. And I'm telling you, I just think this is setting up. Todd Monken has clearly planted that seed that you guys, gentlemen, are in a competition. Get out there, close your eyes, throw some passes, work out, hustle, work.
Shout out to Boog, because obviously Shedeur is putting in some work, and obviously when you're putting in work with somebody this legendary in the world of football and Jim Tressel, right? You're talking about national champion, and just so we all know, because I printed it out, I have it right here for you. We're talking about national champion. We're talking about a Division I AA 4-time national championship at Youngstown State. We're talking about the president of Youngstown State was at Ohio State from 01 to 2010, when 94 and 22 overall against Rival Michigan, reaching 3 BCS national championship games, and then the 2002 national championship game, which was an undefeated season. Look, this, when I saw this, and by the way, obviously I know Shedeur putting in work with